Welcome everyone, my name's Jonathan. You join me from the corner of my caravan, I guess in my little corner of the internet really. I wanted to record this video, I've been meaning to record this video for a few months now. I just wanted to share my experiences really with having a lithium battery installed in my caravan and the experience I've sort of gained from doing this and some of the research I've done. I've seen quite a lot of I've seen this question asked quite a lot on the caravan forums. Can I install a lithium battery in my caravan? And reading through some of the answers that you get back, some of the answers are a bit questionable, to be quite honest. And I think a lot of that comes from there's a lot of conflicting knowledge out there. There's a lot of conflicting opinions. So I just thought I'd put this video together that hopefully help a few people out who's considering perhaps installing a lithium battery in their caravan, and some of the considerations that you might want to think about before you installed one. So the exam question is, can I install one in my caravan? Is it a straight fit? And if it's not a straight fit, what are the considerations or things I need to consider? So I think the first question is why would I want to fit a lithium battery into my caravan? And I think there's probably two answers to that question. So the first one is what every caravanner obsesses about, which is weight. So a typical lithium battery, so I have an eco-worthy 100 amp hour one here from my caravan that I've been using, like I say, for a couple of years now. It's about half the weight of the equivalent lead acid battery. So that's a saving of around 12 kilograms. This battery weighs about 12 kilograms. The equivalent lead acid one was around 24, give or take. So obviously you're saving quite a significant weight. Significant weight, which obviously can then be added back into your weight allowance in the caravan. Physically, it's a bit smaller now, probably less of a consideration in a caravan because you've got a fixed size battery box to fit it in, so the physical size is probably not going to be too impactful, but it is physically smaller, which I guess makes it a little bit easier to handle really physically. And then the main part, or the main reason why I wanted to fit a lithium battery to the caravan was the capacity. Now, while the advertised capacity is the same at 100 amp hours, because of the difference in chemistry of the batteries, lead acid versus lithium, on a lithium battery you're able to use far more of the available capacity of the battery. So I think there are some online tests, probably some other shakedown videos where they've tested these batteries, but from fully charged to fully depleted, you can get the 100 amp hours out of the battery. Now, you won't be able to achieve that typically on a lead acid battery for a number of reasons. One of the main one is consistent or regular discharging below 50% or around 50% of a lead acid battery damages the battery or degrades it, which reduces its capacity over time. So you're unable to use that full capacity of the battery, and if you do, you'll end its life earlier really. So they're the two main reasons on why you would want to consider fitting one. And then now I appreciate some people on here are going to be asking, well, I'm always on electric hookup, why do I need a lithium battery? So in all honesty, you probably don't if you only ever tour on electric hookup. I have a wife and a couple of boys, so we like going to festivals, so we do some off-gridding, and obviously that's where the lithium battery comes into its own really, with that additional capacity. So back to the main question. Can I fit a lithium battery into my caravan, and is it a drop-in or can I drop it straight in? And again, the answer to that question is maybe, probably, possibly. And the considerations you need to take into account are how you're going to charge that battery in your caravan. So lithium batteries are a little bit more, I guess temperamental is the word, around how you charge them, is they have a much more specific charge profile. Now, you do have the added benefit on a lithium battery that they tend to come with a BMS, or a battery management system. So this is built in, so that just provides you an element of protection to the battery, so it stops you overcharging it, and it also stops you under or draining it down below what is classed as its minimum voltage. So that protects you, or protects the battery from you doing any sort of damage to the battery via charging. Now, it's probably worth considering that's probably a safety mechanism rather than something you should rely on. I don't think it's a substitute for not having the correct charger or the correct charging profile for the battery, but it is an added layer of protection that you don't get on a lead acid battery. Also, that BMS is going to protect you against drawing too much current out of the battery in one hit, so basically overheating the battery. And the same when you're charging it back up as well, it's going to prevent you overcharging the battery, so trying to put too much current back into the battery while you're charging it. Now that's unlikely to be an issue for you in a caravan, but it's still nice to know that capability is there, sort of preventing you do any damage to the battery. So in a caravan, you are likely to have 2, maybe 3 ways of charging that caravan. So we'll start with the obvious one, which is via the onboard charger when you're on electric hookup. So when you're home on your drive, or whether you're on a campsite, when you're connected to the mains power and you've got the charger turned on, your onboard charger is going to provide that 12 volt output to drive all your accessories, your 12 volt systems within your caravan. And it's also going to charge your battery as well. Now, depending on which one you have fitted to your caravan, depends on whether it is suitable for charging lithium batteries. Now, my caravan is a 2018 Swift 590, so it's 5-6 years old now. Just to give you some sort of idea of age. And my caravan is fitted with the Sargent, I didn't know the model number on it. There you go, it'll be on the back square. Sargent PX300, so I guess the 12 means 12 volts. So a Sargent PX300 power supply or charge unit, really. Now, strictly speaking, this wasn't designed for lithium batteries, and it does specifically say on it, suitable for lead acid batteries, see manual for other types. However, due to the design of the, say in my case, the eco-worthy battery, I appreciate there are other providers of battery out there, and I suspect they're all aimed at this sort of leisure industry, so it's worth checking the spec sheets, but you're probably not going to find that they're too far different from what I've experienced. Is the charging profile of this particular charger, and I believe this is fitted to quite a lot of caravans. I'll link the spec sheet below, but the charging profile, this specific charger, is compatible with the eco-worthy battery. So the charge profile comes inside what is an acceptable charge range for the battery. So whilst technically not a lithium battery charger, it is still, it's still capable and perfectly safe to use that battery with that charger. And as I say, I've been doing so for 2.5 years. It's been absolutely fine. The only slight caveat to that is the voltage range, or the output voltage range of this charger doesn't quite reach the maximum voltage the battery needs to be fully charged. So this can only charge the battery to around, I think it's 70 or 80% fully charged. Now that's kind of not really an issue, to be quite honest. It just means you can't charge right up to the 100% using this this onboard charger. So that's option number 1, or how you're going to charge it, number 1. So we move on to the second way of charging your battery within the caravan, and that's potentially, if you have one fitted, is via a solar panel. So you know, if some caravans were fitted, this one comes with a solar panel on the roof. You will have a solar charger somewhere in the caravan. Mine is in the cupboard by the microwave. And again, this will have some kind of charge profile designed into it or programmed into it. Probably less of an issue really compared to the mains powered charger, because the output is always going to be low compared to what the mains charger is. But it's worth considering. I would imagine that most of the solar chargers are going to be able to fit within the profile of the battery. Now, just a little side note on this one is the standard Sargent, I think it is, chargers are known to be a bit ropey, to be quite honest. I actually replaced mine with a small Victron unit. Ignore the wires that are hanging off it, but a small Victron MPPT charger. So added benefit of this is they're a bit more efficient because they're MPPT, so you can get a bit more out of the available solar, which is obviously very handy if you're off-gridding. Also, there's Bluetooth on this, so you can look and check on the stats of how much solar you've collected or generated, I guess. And also you can see the health of the battery via this as well, which is quite a nice feature. So yeah, that is a worthwhile upgrade. Might do a separate video on upgrading this. Quite a straightforward upgrade, to be honest, but might do a separate video on this at some point in the future, but yeah, absolutely a worthwhile upgrade. The advantage of that is they are programmable, so you can go and define the charge profile, so you can go and put into that charge controller the exact specifications to match the battery that you happen to have. Now the advantage of doing that is where I mentioned before that you can only charge the lithium battery to 80% using this particular onboard charger. You could configure this, which is exactly what I did, to charge up to the full 100%. So once this is maxed out at, I think it's 13.8 volts, if there is some solar, the solar can charge above that, and that will carry on charging the battery up to its maximum value if there is enough solar being generated and available, etc., etc. So yes, that covers off two options. So we move on to the third way of charging your caravan battery, and that is via the vehicle when you're towing. Now this one's a little bit more complicated, and I think this is probably where most of the confusion, or I don't know if confusion, but difference of opinion comes from online. So again, I read a lot of the forums, a lot of people saying you can, you can't, you should, you shouldn't. You'll blow your car up, you'll do damage, you'll do this, and it probably doesn't help because there's a few scaremongering videos out there in the wild as well. So I thought I'd just give you my take on this. Again, my experience is from a little bit of real world experience. I have tested this, so I've tested two ways of doing this, and both sort of seem to give satisfactory results, so I thought I'd share those two. Now one of the reasons why putting a lithium caravan in your battery can be a little bit problematic is lithium batteries have a very low internal resistance, which is good for battery efficiency, not great for unregulated charging. Basically it means that they can potentially try and draw too much current when you're trying to charge them, which I guess has the potential to, you know, blow fuses is probably the best case scenario, and if the fuse doesn't blow, you may overheat some wiring. And I think that's online what a lot of people are most concerned about. So you've got a couple of ways of answering this question. So I think I'll go for probably the better of the two answers, or the better of the two solutions, and that is a onboard DC to DC battery charger. I went this route, I'll be honest, because at the time I thought it was required. I think as time's gone by and I've done a bit more research on the subject, it probably wasn't required, but I have one. So what I did is I basically installed a DC to DC battery charger in the caravan, or the front of the caravan, and I installed it on the 12 volt feed that comes in from the car while it's towing. So I think that's on pin 9 or one of the ground pins. It comes into the caravan, and I just installed this DC to DC charger effectively in path. I'll put a diagram up of what that looks like, you know, circuit wise. And what that does is it just splits the lithium battery from the car battery effectively, or the car electronics, or the car circuits. And so you've got that sort of physical break there. So you're taking, the charger takes its feed from the car, and then it regulates that down or upwards. You regulate it down, but it ups the voltage to the correct voltage for the lithium battery, so you're getting the exact correct charge profile for a lithium battery whilst you're towing. The downside to doing that is you've obviously got the cost of a DC to DC charger. There's obviously a small weight penalty with that, you know, they're a couple, 2, 3, 4 kilograms, something like that. And also you've got the added complexity of finding somewhere to install it and actually installing it. Again, that is what I did, and it's worked perfectly ever since I installed it, but it was an additional cost that I went through. So I did also look into, do I actually need a DC to DC charger? And I crunched the numbers a little bit in terms of the resistance of the battery and the voltage differential between the car and the battery, and the likely current draw from when the car's running. And you do actually come out with some quite, at least theoretical, scary numbers. So like I said, the lithium battery has a low internal impedance. Now I can't get an exact figure from EcoWorthy. I've emailed them, they've not responded, but I did have a go at measuring it, and I think it comes out at 0.13 milliohms. I also found a document online that suggests it was 0.13 milliohms, but I must stress I've not had that confirmed by EcoWorthy. So working on that number, if you think that your car alternator is outputting maybe 13.8 volts, I know that varies. Smart alternators tend to move around a little bit, and according to the supply and demand. or the demand specifically. So yeah, your alternator is outputting 13.8 volts. Maybe your lithium battery is discharged, so it's sat at 12.8 volts and gives you a 1 volt differential. So using the internal resistance of the battery, 0.13 ohms, or no, sorry, 13 milliohms. We'll get that right. 13 milliamps. It technically means the battery would try and draw 70 amps when the engine was running with that 1 volt difference. Now that seemed an exceedingly high number to me, to be quite honest, and I did have to check my maths a couple of times on this, and I still wasn't entirely convinced it was accurate. Now that milliohm number is obviously just the internal resistance of the battery. You've got resistance of the wiring, the connector, the plug where you plug it into the car. You've got the wiring in the car, as I say. So there's quite a bit more to take into account, which is going to increase that resistance number. So what I did as a test is I drained down this battery. I did it the other night actually. I drained down this battery to around 10% charge, and then I just hooked it up onto the charge pins of the back of the car, and I actually had a little shunt rigged up so I could measure the current that was basically coming into the battery when the engine was running. Now, my car does have a smart alternator, and when I started the car up, it was outputting 14.6 volts. Assuming the reason it's doing that is because the car knows it's in a cold start state, and it's trying to put as much power as possible, as quickly as possible, back into the battery because it's been on a cold start. So I was seeing 14.6 volts across the pins on the plug on the back of the car. So I said pin 9 and the respective earth pin. The battery was sat at around, I think I measured it at 12.88 volts, something like that. And I was quite surprised to see there was only around 8 amps going into the battery, into the lithium battery. So that is well within the spec of the wiring of the car. I think it's fused at 20 amps, so you're well under that 20 amps. So I'm concluding from that test that you would probably be okay installing, certainly in my vehicle at least, a lithium battery without a DC to DC charger. You might want to do a little bit of your own research on that, but that's just my findings, and I said based on a little bit of testing that I did. So hopefully that gives you a little, helps you out a little bit, clears up some of the confusion, and certainly some of the considerations you need to take into account when fitting a lithium battery. Looping back to my original question, can you install one? Do I have to make any alterations or considerations? And we're back to the answer to the original question, which is probably, maybe, possibly, really, depending on the age of your caravan, the equipment fitted to your caravan. So does it have a solar panel? What 240 volt charger is installed in your caravan? Is all going to come into play. Now, just one final note on this: if you have an older caravan, or you perhaps have a caravan that doesn't have a charger that's compatible with a lithium battery, as you can see, it's a removable unit. 230 volt goes into it when you're electric hookup, and 12 volts come out of it or approximately 12 volts come out of it while it's powered up. So you could easily replace that unit inside your caravan for one that is a more modern unit that is either got the right charge profile for your lithium battery, or by chance, which is what this one has, the charge profile that this is using is within the scope of the battery, so it's going to be fine. So I think that about wraps it up for today. I say I'll probably do a few more technical videos, usual YouTube thing. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe it. I'm probably going to do a few more videos, perhaps touching on some of the more technical aspects of caravanning, and probably trying to debunk some myths and just provide a little bit of clarity to some of the topics. So yeah, that's been great. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully catch you soon.